Hi guys, Geekonomics here. Today I'm going to be looking at extract 2 of F585. This is the second in my series of simplified videos with regard to the likely exam questions for the global economy paper. We've already looked at extract 1, where we know that we are looking for probably a 4-mark question and a 6-mark question. Now we're into extract 2. The questions do follow the order of the extracts, well at least they have done in all the previous sessions, so it would be a little unusual if that were not the case this time. So here we're looking for a 10-mark question. Always begins with the directive word comment. You'll not find that in your specification, but you will find the term evaluate, so it's the term evaluate that we're looking for. So what content have we got here, ladies and gentlemen, in extract 2? We've got this stuff here, which is to do with the current account position with regard to China and the United States. And then we've got this, which is to do with information on exchange rates. So if you then look to your specification, to the area where you'll find the information about those specifically current account and exchange rates. So here we have it again. So we're in the trade and integration section. You'll remember that that formed the majority of the section of specification that we were looking at for extract 1. So let's see what we can find here with regard to exchange rates and current account and see whether or not we can pull out and predict a likely question. So we've already looked at these at the top here. Explain how exchange rates are determined in different exchange rate systems. Unlikely to be the question, but that's something that you would need to know anyway in order to deal with any question on exchange rates. I've already done a video on that actually quite recently. You can have a look at that one. Evaluate the relative merits and drawbacks of different exchange rate systems. Could be a comment question, but pretty unlikely given the content of your extract. Evaluate the causes and consequences of exchange rate fluctuations. Possibly. Certainly something you would need to know about for this particular extract anyway. Evaluate policies to correct imbalances on the balance of payments. So on our extract material we have information about the current account, deficit and surplus in respect to both countries, and we've also got information about the effective exchange rate index. So to my mind you're going to get a question which is based around this bullet point: the policies to correct imbalances on the balance of payments. And as you'll know, of course, the currency, a nation's currency, can be manipulated in order to correct a current account imbalance. And again, this is something which I've discussed in previous videos, so I'm not going to discuss that here. So I do, however, want to just say one or two things about this final paragraph just beneath the figure 2.2 here, the information which is here. And really primarily it relates to the direction in which the financial flows are moving here. So it talks about the financial flows moving from the less developed economies, which in this case is China, to the highly developed economy, the United States. And it's just interesting that the financial flows are going in that direction from the poor country, or the relatively poorer country, to the wealthy country, not the wealthy, to the less developed economy. And I just want to have a look and consider why that might actually be the case. So we know that we've got a savings glut, so we've got an excess of savings in China. And obviously the bankers in China will want to put this money to good use. And one way that they can do that is obviously they can buy up assets and debts and so on denominated in US dollars and earn a return on that. Now that has very beneficial impacts for the Chinese economy, because as they sell off their holdings of the yuan in order to convert it into the US dollar, it does two things. So here I've got two exchange rate diagrams. One for China, one for the United States. Dollar per yuan, yuan per dollar. Very important that you get these the right way around when you're labeling these diagrams. But let's just think about what would be happening if the Chinese are converting all of these savings into US dollar. So they'll be selling off their holdings of the yuan, so the supply will be increasing, supply will be going in this direction. Now as a consequence of that, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you can see that, so we go to S2, but the more important point here is that the value of the yuan will be moving in that direction. The value of the yuan will be depreciating. Now of course, for a country like China, which is making all of its revenue and the majority of its aggregate demand, C to the I to the G to the X minus M, the majority of that is coming from export sales. Well, again, this is helping to reinforce that ability to maximize the sales of exports, because the value of the yuan is obviously falling, and that reduces the price of exports, and ceteris paribus, the demand for exports should go up. Similarly, however, in the United States, as more debt and assets are being purchased in US dollars, the demand for the dollar is going to be moving in this direction. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can observe here what would be happening to the exchange rate. So the value of the exchange rate will be pushed up, like so. Now we've witnessed in figure 2.1, if I just bring that back up again, figure 2.1, we can see here that the United States, it has this persistent deficit on its current account. Now obviously one way in which it can help to cure that is to depreciate the currency, and we know that the value of the effective exchange rate, that's the US dollar effective exchange rate, has depreciated over this time period shown. And so it's a wonder, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen, that the size of that deficit hasn't come down more than it has done here. It's, relative sort of halved over this time period shown. Well, one of the reasons might be because of these financial flows and the direction in which they're flowing. They are flowing from the poor countries to the rich countries, as demonstrated here. And the consequence of that, and the reinforcing effect of that, is that it helps to keep Chinese export prices cheap, but it also forces up the price of US exports. And that obviously makes it much more difficult for the US to cure that current account imbalance. So it's a good evaluative comment, ladies and gentlemen, should you get a question related to that, which I'm sure you will. So I think the question for 10 marks for 1C will be as follows. I think it's this. Comment on the extent to which the change in the effective exchange rate index of the United States dollar, as shown in figure 2.2, will have contributed to the change in the USA's current account deficit. I think that's your 10 marker, ladies and gentlemen. Be interested on your thoughts on that. So I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions for alternative questions, by all means do get in touch. Thanks, and see you again.